Well, thanks everybody. I know it's probably been a long day, but I'm glad we saved the best for last here with
That's right.
the awesome panel that we have collected in front of you. We'll do introductions in a second, but the topic we want to talk about these women's businesses and what they've gone through to export, and talk about some of the resources that they took advantage of in their export journey. So as many of you may or may not be aware, there's a ton of resources out there to help businesses export. It's a big priority for the administration. It's a big priority at the state and local level. So we wanted to share a little bit more about what that looks like and how people can access those resources to go global. My name's Bo Steiner. I'm the Deputy Associate Administrator for SBA's Office of Field Operations. SBA is an independent federal agency, and we are focused on helping small businesses start, grow, and thrive. So this is right in our wheelhouse as far as how do we help businesses expand, how do we help them be as successful as possible. On our panel today, we have 3 women who are exporters and are interested in sharing their experiences in their export journey. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves. We'll start with Linda, and we'll move down the line.
I'm Linda Miller. I've been very fortunate. I started Paradise Dental Technologies in my 2-car garage 18 years ago, and now we distribute into over 50 countries and have been very blessed with a great team of people that we work with and a lot of alliances with different government agencies that have helped us. We manufacture dental hand instruments, and of course everybody has teeth, so we're fortunate they're needed everywhere.
Thank you, Wendy.
Hi, yeah, I'm Wendy Kester with Diversified Plastics. This is my second panel of the day, so I'll try to keep it interesting. I do want to make a plug for Linda Miller. Her business won the Employer of Choice Award from the Job Service Employers Council. She has an amazing business and is, super impressive. Great inspiration. So anyway, I am part of a second-generation family-owned business. I'm the general manager. The business is owned by Brad and Wendy Reed here in Missoula, and we export directly, and then we also know a lot of our products end up overseas indirectly via U.S. distribution and U.S.-based original equipment manufacturers. And yeah, I'm here to just give my own experience. Thank you.
And then Joan.
Thank you. Disclaimer, I've had 3 minutes warning that I was going to be on the panel. Thank you, Angela.
It's even better.
My name is Joan Kronebusch. I am the Director of Sales for the Town Pump Hotel Group, the very much lesser known division of Town Pump. I am here to share some of my stories and successes and trials and tribulations of working in in Canada, and who I reached out to and how they were able to help me and hopefully help you.
Great. Well, we'll start with Linda. And could you talk a little bit about your business reason for going into exporting? Like what was the big driver for you to head in that direction?
Well, we sell through distributors, so we actually had a lot of distributors in Canada come to us originally and say, we need your product, which was great. Then we had dentists that came to U.S. perio meetings and things like that, and they took them back to their country and then took them to their distributors and said, we need this in this country. So we were very fortunate that end users actually drove a lot of our expansion, but once we got into that, we realized, boy, 70% of our business should be international. At this point, we're 30% of our business is international, and it's still growing.
Wendy, if you talk to that same question.
Question.
Yeah.
Well, we have a confession that we started exporting by accident, sort of. Uh, It wasn't an intentional plan, and it should have been. And but we were discovered by our first two customers, overseas customers, at an international trade show here in the U.S. In Chicago, the WEFTech show. There about 8 years ago, and they were interested in what we made. They ordered some samples and put them into their facilities, water treatment facilities, and tested them for several years, and then didn't even know. And when the time came to refurbish their plants, they started placing orders for these replacement components, bigger and bigger orders. And I can tell you that made me sit up and pay attention and decide we needed to figure out how it is that these customers in Singapore are calling us to source our products, and maybe we've been asleep at the wheel, that there is a large opportunity out there for us, and something that could make our business, much stronger. And the biggest reason to pursue it is to diversify our customer base. For anybody in manufacturing, it isn't uncommon to have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 really large customers and then have a spattering of much smaller ones. That's always like living a little dangerously. In case something happens to one of those big customers, then your business is impacted in a big way. So having a larger customer base is important, and why not have it be global? So.
Adding on to Wendy's comment about the customer base, 25% of my customer base in the hotel, in my Montana and Idaho hotels, 25% of that is international, but 20% is Canada, and a majority of that is Alberta. We began fostering our relationships with Albertans, just the general traveling public, and then we drilled down deeper with the help of Carrie Hester, and utilizing the Gold Key programs to get accounts up in Canada. And this was in the height of the oil and gas industry. So unfortunately, we all kind of know what happened there, but I was able to keep those relationships going, and the 20% has softened a bit, but we know that will come back, so.
Got it. And, I think it's interesting, you hear, hey, I was kind of an accidental exporter, or all of a sudden I just got orders, right? And I think that's incredibly frequent occurrence with businesses, especially with the internet now, is like people find your stuff and they're like, hey, I want this stuff and I can't get it anywhere else, or I can't get the quality that I want. And so once that happens though, then it's like, oh no, I have to figure out how to get there. Like, how do I get the technical expertise to navigate this? So can you talk a little bit about how you figured out, how do I deal with all the stuff how do I get this product from here to there? So talk a little bit about that, if you could.
Well, originally I went to a training program that was put on by the Montana World Trade Center, as well as Brigida and Carrie Hester. The Commerce Department joined together and put on a program, and that really helped us dive a little deeper into the international. And then through Angela, actually, we had a lot of funding made available to us so that we could go out and go to trade shows internationally. They helped split the funding with us for travel as well as the exhibit space. They also offered some translation services It ended up one of our distributors over there could do it at that time, but we're looking at that again.
And was that through the state trade expansion program?
Yes, yes.
Great, and which I would say is an SBA-funded grant program that goes to the states to help with exporting. So, sorry, I had to put the plug in there.
Yes, that's great.
Awesome. So, and did any other government or local organizations help you navigate that?
But some of it was past experience from, I've been in this industry, I hate to say, for 38 years. And so from my previous companies, I learned a little bit about export. But I think reaching out to Carrie and looking at the obstacles that we could have run into and making sure that we did things the right way, coming to a realization that there were obstacles, instead of just jumping in like I do sometimes. And so we can make sure that we did things right. And so
Great.
it really helped.
Yeah, thank you.
So we have taken full advantage of these programs that are offered from the U.S. Commercial Service, from the SBA, and the state of Montana. Received a huge amount of assistance that way. Great advice, and then actually utilizing the programs with the U.S. Commercial Service. We've used the Gold Key program and the initial market check program. Just visiting some more with Carrie Hester today about another program we might be able to use called Fuse, which I'm really interested in, and we're going to pursue that. Applied for STEP grants, which again I think is funded through the SBA, and won those awards so that we could help offset the cost of just kind of trying out this adventure, because that's really what it is still right now. To go over to make a decision to go exhibit at an international show and kind of test the waters is a big thing. Just plunk a bunch of money down when you're just starting out. You hope that you get something back from that, but having that the opportunity for some financial support through these STEP grants, it helped us make that decision, like, yeah, let's go for it. Let's go see what this is all about and what we can learn about the Asian markets. And we did. We learned a lot from doing that, and we're going back. This year, we're going to exhibit again in Singapore. Yeah, I mean, just even I'll even make a plug for the resources that are available. I don't know what they're called, kind of the country summaries. Do you know what I'm talking about, Carrie?
Oh, country commercial.
Yeah, I like those. I read them. They're great. Yeah, kind of gives you a nice overview of what to expect in a particular country. So.
Without sounding like a broken record, utilizing, again, the services of Carrie, Brigitte, and Angela's, the services, depending upon what level you're coming in at, whether they be free or a paid service, don't let those paid services scare you off. Our first jump in, our first dipping the water, or the toe in the water, was through a paid service with Carrie. And my return on investment was literally was in less than 24 hours. I think it was during a meeting. Someone within the oil and gas industry, the company I was meeting with, had people literally going down to Montana. They were looking for a place, and said, she took my informational sheet, she got on the phone, read it off, and within 24 hours, we had people staying in one of our hotels in Montana. So mine fortunately was an immediate return, but Angela, I took advantage of a grant through her office and attended a trade show. And it took a couple years, but I did see a small return. And but for me, it's fostering the relationships after an initial contact. Mine is not based on orders. I have a hotel room to sell. I'm not selling product.
Right.
And so mine is making sure that we continue that relationship, even though it may not be within a month or a week, a month. But eventually, if we keep fostering that, we will see the return.
And so you mentioned, I mean, you're more like service-based, right?
Mm-hmm.
Service exports. How does that fit into your overall, your overall diversification of customers? Is it an important part, or is it something that just kind of varies depending on year by year?
Very much, because in the summer, my customer base is leisure, and they are going from point A to point B and home. They are coming through Montana, whether they're coming to Montana or coming through Montana. I have a variety of locations, but my core base business is more of a business traveler.
Okay,
And leisure is just icing on the summer cake for me.
got it. Great. So as you've gone through this, and this is probably more for Linda and Wendy, because you got these hard products that you're exporting. Are you when you were thinking about going through this process, how did you identify distributors or freight forwarders or whatever those other people that you needed to identify? How did you go through that process? Because that seems to be a common issue for small businesses to identify.
Sure. We were fortunate that in the dental industry, it's a pretty tight-knit group. And so we did reach out to other manufacturers in the industry and talked with them, and asked for references about the distributors that we were reaching out to. Our products are small, so we utilize UPS. UPS ships everywhere in the world. We negotiated contracts with them, and so it was very easy to make that all happen. There were some countries, though, that we have to register our products into those countries, and those are long, drawn-out procedures. So we do have a regulatory person on staff that makes sure all our T's are crossed and I's are dotted.
Did you have to get, for example, CE certified and all
We
the
did.
things that go along with that?
Yes. We're also ISO 14385. And so we have a auditor that comes in once a year and makes sure that our system is all on track. And so we have a very extensive quality system because we're medical devices.
And for example, for the CE certification or the ISO certification,
Yes.
how difficult was that to get it initially? Did it take a long time, or was it?
Fortunately, our European distributor used to work in the government as with ISO standards, and she had worked for the government, and so she put it together for us on the ISO side. I'm sorry, on the CE side. On the ISO side, we did hire someone that had ISO experience, and then we contracted with BSI, who regulates these, audits for these standards.
Right. Lesson learned there, hire people that know what they're doing.
Definitely. And I was a quality manager
Okay.
previously at a medical device company, but I put together GMP programs and FDA programs, but the ISO was just that next step. And with a new company, I didn't have time to put all that together, so we did bring in someone. Yes.
And Wendy, for you?
So, so again, we're on a bit of a journey. So when we started getting these big orders, and I said I sat up and paid attention, I really mean that. It's like, it highlighted, oh, sorry, my husband. Oh, can I take this? No. Okay. Anyway, it really highlighted and helped us kind of form a better strategy that's good whether we're going to sell domestically or go international. So basically what I learned by, we did a mission trip with the governor and we did the trade show, and it was really just me fascinated with this, and it made me realize if we really want to do this, I need more people who know what they're doing through their own experiences with other companies. That would help fast forward this process. And so I took some steps. I hired, did a national search and hired a new sales and marketing director that has traveled to 6 continents and worked all over. I spent 7 months searching for that person, and then I hired an operations manager who's done the same thing. He's worked in China, he's worked in Taiwan, and we had to lay some foundation if we were really going to be serious about this. The good news is, either way, it helps our business because these are great people, lots of great experience, and we'll grow it domestically as well. To your point on certifications, though, that was another thing that we learned by the exploration was, if we really want to open up the market, we need those certifications probably. I decided Singapore might be the easiest country to sell in to the whole world. It's like, talk about a free marketplace. I mean, it was just easy. Everything about it was easy, and that's just not true. So it gave us kind of a false idea, I think, because other countries, there's a lot of other barriers to work through. So yeah, some just good lessons. You need that foundation knowledge before you can actually be successful at it intentionally, not by accident, which is what we did the first time.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned a couple of the services that you used. You mentioned Gold Key. Can you kind of share what that is and what that means?
The Gold Key service, I love it. It is makes you feel important. It's huge. It's having the U.S. government, make an introduction at a party. That's what it's like. They go out and they meet with you, try to understand what do we do, what are we selling. Do that together, and then they go into the area that you're interested in exploring, and they vet potential distributors or customers, partners for you, and arrange introductory meetings. And you have this great reputation of the USA behind you. You're validated as a business, and I felt comfortable that we were meeting a legitimate business on the other side that we would truly want to partner with. We did that. We have gone through the RFQ process with a couple of those that we met through that service. We haven't sold anything, and maybe you can tell by my first story, the water treatment sales process can be long, really long. These are big, a lot of them are big municipal projects. So, like in the U.S., it might be a couple years long between when we first issue a quote and that you actually get an order. That we have had that happen regularly. So I'm not discouraged by that, is what I'm saying, I guess. It's actually not surprising. And anyway, so the Gold Key service is wonderful. Yeah. And the initial market check is like a smaller version of that. You don't actually get arranged meetings maybe out of it, but they kind of do some market research for you in the area that you're interested in going. And we just did that in Germany with the U.S. Commercial Service person over there. And just really, really helpful because we're not a big business. We can't go everywhere, so we need to decide what is our biggest opportunity for success. And we're not sure. We knew we sold it into Singapore, but would they buy it in Germany? Would they buy it in South America? We don't know for sure. So it's kind of starting to learn that, and then hopefully you set yourself up for something successful when you really want to go in there and market your product.
Thanks. And I think you all mentioned going to trade shows as an opportunity. Can you talk about that experience and what that looks like? So I used to be in the medical device industry, and you go to like one of these trade shows and it's insane. Like they build these giant buildings inside the center where they're having it and all that. But I saw it more from a, big company perspective. What's it like as a small business going to a trade show overseas where you're trying to build business?
I would love to start with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd have to say, every 2 years, the dental industry has the biggest trade show in Cologne, Germany, and it is absolutely amazing. We go through the commerce, well, we didn't go through the commerce department, but we're in the U.S. pavilion that is it's sponsored by the U.S. Commerce Department. The people come through, we see companies from all over the world. Being in the U.S. Pavilion really aided us because there's 5 big buildings, bigger than the Adams Center, and they're 3 stories high, and they're just packed with exhibitors. And being in the U.S. Pavilion drew people to us because they knew we had the quality that they wanted. And through that, we opened up our South American markets, our European markets. We were fortunate to be right on the main thoroughfare, and the Commerce Department would also put on trainings about China and in the evenings, because we would be working from 8 in the morning till 6 at night in the booth, and then at 6:15 there would be a seminar about regulatory for China or Brazil or Turkey, or so we had so many different opportunities by being a part of the U.S. Pavilion and getting out to those main trade shows. And the U.S. Commerce Department also, in U.S. trade shows in New York or in Chicago, they bring people by, or they have seminars concerning various countries. And so they played an extremely big part in growing our business.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we've taken full advantage of this, I feel like, too. We actually did the domestic show WEFTech under being part of the Montana Pavilion with Angela in, 2015 or something. We did that and took advantage of that. We kind of had dropped out of the trade show scene, and that was before I was in charge. I decided that wasn't a good idea. We should do this. So we did it, and it was great because, again, the cost of participating in a trade show is expensive. And so we did that, and that's an international trade show. We took advantage of the commercial service, the introductions that they will make for you, the kind of small meet and greet type of opportunities there. There's a name for them, and I can't recall what that is either. That was it. I should bring the microphone to you. We did that, and it was good. And then, yeah, the experience in Singapore, these shows, yeah, they're impressive, and they are international. I followed up with engineering firms from 6 different countries, Thailand, Vietnam, Japan, I can't even think of them all, and had quite a bit of back and forth with those, and we'll be following up with those firms again when we go back this summer. Just a large opportunity for measuring the interest in what we make, and then the exhibiting is expensive. So the IFAT, or actually they say EFAT show in Germany that our sales director was at last week, we walked that show. He'd never been to that show before. And he said it was probably the largest show he had ever been to, and he has been to a lot of shows. And that was an environmental show. And again, trying to get the lay of the land, how crowded is the market over here, how many people are already doing this or not. what is the attitude towards engineered plastics as opposed to stainless steel? You know, trying to get that kind of market intel. So anyway, hopefully I answered that question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I
So-
mean, I think everybody's experience at trade shows is different. And go ahead. Did you-
And we do over 300 events a year now, and it makes a huge difference to get those products into people's hands. They can see the quality, they can feel the quality, and they can talk to you face to face. I know we're an internet world now, but one of our major competitors was bought out last May, and they quit doing trade shows. And you can see their business starting to die off a little bit. We are getting more and more of that business from them. And it makes a difference to be able to have that one-on-one contact and to feel the product.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that, I'm not sure which of you mentioned, is kind of the reverse trade show thing too, where Commerce helps arrange for, you go to a US-based trade show in Chicago or wherever, and then they bring people in, and it's another opportunity to get in front of the buyers that you're looking to get with. And it may be maybe a more affordable path through at the initial phases, and something to, before you make the big plunge and go overseas. Joan, kind of from your perspective, you mentioned that you've gone to trade shows as well. Can you talk a little bit about, kind of from a service perspective, what that looks like? And because, it's not like Linda can put the instrument in somebody's hand. It's kind of a different perspective.
When Angie pitched the idea of us attending WEFTech with her in Chicago some years ago, I was thinking, wow, I wonder if the Cubs are in town, because I can't even imagine what I would be at a trade show. And Wendy, I believe your company was there, and I was at the end just with my hotel banners and watching people come down the row, and they would look at me and go, "Ah, Montana, oh, Montana." And so thinking outside the box of, I don't have a product, mine is definitely a service, but chiming in on don't go it alone. And I could have never have afforded that opportunity to be at WEFTech alone, being in the Montana pavilions, being in the US pavilions. And I have also, Carrie, I think, was the one that fostered the introduction with the Canadian consulate. And I have fostered that relationship, and there's been a change in leadership there, forged my way in, and now I am welcomed quite nicely down in Denver to the Canadian consulate. And they have taken it and taken me kind of a bit under their wings and started introducing me to more people that they are dealing with, even though it's in Colorado. But I have done them nice things and been good to them, and so they are good to me. And I think my big one was, don't go it alone. But right now, speaking of Denver, one of my colleagues is participating in a Montana pavilion that is, they are entertaining international tour operators and tour brokers. And so we are part of that. Could have never afforded it on our own, but just taking advantage of the partnerships.
That's great, yeah. And maybe this is more a question for you, is does Montana do kind of trade missions from a state perspective? It sounds like you've had engagement in that. Have either of you had the opportunity to take advantage of those kinds?
We went on a trade mission with the governor's office in 2015 in the fall. And again, that was a neat opportunity for us because we hadn't gone overseas. So it was nice to be with a group, be led around. I didn't go, the owner went, but yeah, it's all mapped out for you. You don't have to figure out how to get a taxi, nothing. So that was an honor to be included, and we took advantage of the invitation, and I think we learned something from that. And we would do that again.
I will add to that. We participated in a trade mission that Brigitte's organization put together to Alberta and BC. And I was fully on board with Alberta because that is my definite trade area. But I see her popping up in the back. But in BC, I was so surprised that some of the residual businesses that I was not quite as active as I probably should have been, because I said, well, we don't get too much out of BC, but so happy that we participated in that. And it was very, very affordable for what we then received back.
Great. Awesome. Well, I know I've asked a lot of questions. I think it might be a good time to open up the floor to questions from folks who are in the audience that you all might have. We've got a microphone here. We're trying to.
Do you manufacture in Paradise? Oh, okay.
Oh, we manufacture right here in Missoula, Montana.
Oh, you manufacture, but Paradise, you're not over there in Bozeman, or you're over here.
We're here.
Okay, so you manufacture here in town, you got everything, all set up here, and BSI comes and inspects you here.
They do, yes.
Okay.
They spend 3 days a year in our facility.
Interesting.
She's so calm when she says that, too. They must be good.
Keep it simple.
And you do 300 trade shows or trade experiences a year?
Trade shows or sponsoring speakers so that, well, yes, so that we're in those trade shows.
Okay.
Yes, throughout the world, though. We have sales managers in South America now, in Europe, and in Asia.
What other questions?
Since my program helped all three of you, it's kind of a self-serving question, but that's what we're here for. I was wondering how Carrie's programs and Brigitte's programs and our STEP grant program and technical assistance, if that hadn't existed, or I guess a better way to ask it is, how did those programs accelerate your time to market?
Well, honestly, I'll say I don't know where I would have found the information that I needed. I would have been a little bit lost. I probably would have discovered Brigitte, the World Trade Center, and she would have been my only go-to. Instead, I get to spread it around. But I don't know if you would. I don't know where we're a small business that had not exported before learn what they were doing. So from my perspective, it was a huge asset to be able to pick up the phone and call someone that's just, down the interstate and get some advice. So.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, and Angela, your system, the STEP program has really assisted us because there's areas that we weren't going to go into. I do have a very tight budget, and so for our expansion, we really investigate the areas that we're going into. This past year, we investigated China with the help of the STEP program. Several years ago, we went to Singapore, and that got us started into that market, which is a meeting again that's once every 2 years, and it's in the Asia market, and it brings people all over Asia into that area, and that opened up several distributors for us, and we still have more countries that just this past April we had brand new contacts in new countries that assisted us. So.
And mine was, my business was strictly leisure, and now through the help of the different programs, I have also gone into the corporate, international corporate business, so.
Can't ever give me a microphone, I'm sorry. The statement came out, and I thought it was very good, and I wrote it down. It said, "Don't go it alone." I'd like to hear from each of you, if you don't mind, how you don't do it alone. How you don't go it alone, and you've kind of grown your business that way. It's an interesting subject, because in small business, we sometimes take, ownership, and we take proprietorship, and whatever ship we can get on. And so I'm curious how you don't go it alone, how you get past that. Maybe it's a barrier of attitude or something else, but all three of you seem to exhibit it, so I'm just curious.
I think that I came to the understanding that I was the biggest thing that got in my own way. There's people that know so much more than I do. And to be able to go to the trainings that Brigida and Carrie and Wayne put on international training and just learn from them, but then bring on the experts that do it well and love doing it, because they can take it so much further than I could by myself. So utilize all these extra resources. Even a training program that Brigida put on, they had the Consulate General from Israel to be able to go to that program where he lectured and learn more about the country and be able to talk to him afterwards. You learn so much about people, and I couldn't do it alone. We couldn't go to those areas by ourselves.
Yeah, what I would say is the more I asked, the more I knew I didn't know. So I didn't know what I didn't know. And that is why I keep showing up to these things. I learn something every time. The presentation this afternoon on the compliance was fascinating to me. I have taken a whole entire class and read a whole book, and honestly, I can't even remember who sponsored that. It was in Helena, 2-day long class. But I keep learning things, and so that's a great thing, and necessary. So it's been a humbling experience. Like she just said, I'm my own worst enemy. I'm not really in the way. I just don't know. So you have to keep asking questions, and I'm always sure there's something else I need to know, and I've been right about that. So.
And mine, again, we all have basically the same, somewhat of the same message. Mine was, Carrie helped me with some language, and mine, not language other than it was English. I just wasn't using the right words as I was crossing the border, because I would always get ticketed to go inside. Cost me 2 extra hours trying to get into Canada, and that was I think it was even before we had to have a passport to get in. I would be asked, what am I doing in Canada? Why am I going to Canada? Well, I am selling, and I was using the word selling. Well, I technically wasn't selling anything, I was promoting. And Carrie told me, identify yourself as a business traveler and shut up. I have never had a problem getting into Canada after that. And it's quite easy at this point. And Carrie broke his arm, patting himself on the back on that one, but that is my, that was my, when I thought I knew everything. I think there was a question in the back also, the gentleman in the blue.
Just a quick one. You kind of made me think of something. What are maybe some of the unforeseen consequences, positive or negative, of going international with your products? Like Linda, I know you mentioned ISO certification, And has that maybe helped your business as a whole in other ways that you didn't think about initially, or maybe, you know, developing new products or things like that? What other sort of unintended things have happened as a result?
Great question. I'm a quality geek because I came from quality, but being with the international travel, this has allowed us to get new innovations that hadn't been thought of yet here. And so developing the product, developing new products has been so exciting. And just the relationships worldwide. We're expanding it. Even 18 years later, we're at the point where we have to build another 20,000 square feet for manufacturing. So and a lot of that's because of the international markets. It's huge. And I have to say, at first, years ago, I don't know that Carrie even knows this, but years ago when I was with another company, I had never really traveled overseas. And he introduced a program, Japanese External Trade Organization, to our company. And so not going it alone on my first trip to Japan was amazing. And that helped broadens your mind to what's really out there when you travel and get into these other countries, and you realize it's not that hard. As long as you reach out and ask people to help.
Unintended consequences. Sometimes consequences have a negative connotation. So far, I don't think there's been a negative, because competing makes you better. It forces you to be better. So we're raising the bar internally. That will only help us in everything that we do. It'll help us compete here domestically, and hopefully we gain traction, and if anything, we keep our work life interesting by pursuing these international sales. But it's made us better. It made us raise the bar and really think about how good we are as a business. So I think that's been a great consequence for us, and it's really helped us focus our energy and our goals and our strategies. So yeah, it's been good. There's not, to me, been a downside yet. So I'm sort of cautious by nature, though. I'm not rushing in. Kind of doing it, kind of trying to do my homework, so.
Mine is just from knowing what the needs of my international travelers, not only my Canadians, but a variety of other countries that are coming to Montana, and just knowing what their needs are and being prepared for them. So mine is a lot different than the others. So.
And friendships. One thing I didn't realize was how good of friendships you can have. I have people from international that fly over here. We utilize your hotels, but they rent bikes, and we take them on motorcycle expeditions around the country, and it's so much fun.
And I just got to say, one of our customers in Singapore texted me on Christmas Day and wished me Merry Christmas. I thought that was so nice.
This is probably a question for Linda, and maybe Wendy also, but I wanted to talk a little bit about intellectual property protection, because I think you have at least one or a couple patented products there. So maybe you could just talk a little bit about how you made how that played in your decision-making process in terms of what countries you would go into, and then if you're comfortable sharing it, maybe as sort of a percentage of your budget that you talked about. I mean, how much money do you spend to defend that IP?
I do have a couple of patents that we license from other people, and fortunately, we haven't had to defend them ourselves yet. It is very costly to have patents in other countries around the world. And so my one product that I did have a patent, several international patents on as well. I did sell that off in 2011, so I wouldn't have to deal with that. It is quite time-consuming and quite expensive to have patents around the world. We do have people that knock off our products, and they're just not the same quality that our product is, so we can reach out and ask them to quit calling it a Montana Jack, and normally they do. People are usually pretty good. We have an instrument that's the #1 sickle scaler in the world that's called the Montana Jack. You know, brings home Montana. Yeah, our quality really pushes that. We don't defend it in court, usually. As of yet, we haven't. Do you have anything?
Yeah, we have a couple of patents, but it isn't on anything that we've exported yet. What we did run into was a weird issue in South Korea, since the RFQ was for a government tender, and the company we're trying to work with, we had a lot of confusion over their rules on who could participate in that tender and where the patents had to be. And our products are not patented here, the ones that we exported. So it created a snag. We backed out of that. I didn't feel comfortable. They wanted to patent it there, and I wasn't ready to do that. So it was a little messy. I called a lot of lawyers. Tried to get the right advice, including some from Carrie, and yeah. So that's kind of part of what I said when I thought it was almost too easy in Singapore, and I know that there's other regulatory steps and things that we might have to jump through other places.
Great. So do we have, Carrie?
Well, in that regard, I'll just, I'll ask each of you to comment. In the efforts that you've, in selling your products abroad or service abroad, I'm kind of interested to hear what are the biggest impediments you faced, or things that have been your major challenges to finding new markets, finding new customers abroad. Maybe talk about how you resolve those.
Let's start with Joan first.
Mine actually has been the Canadian dollar. And we weren't concerned as it approached 2025. We did get a little concerned as it approached 30%, but we never gave up. We were persistent. We have not backed off of our marketing in Canada. Our trade missions, our trade shows, our promotions, and we have heard, because it is still hovering right at 30%, and we are being recognized on our own now because we have had such a presence over the years that kind of maybe the Canadians are saying it is what it is. We're still going to come south. We're still going to have our few holidays in Montana or wherever they're going. But ours was the dollar, but we were persistent and we didn't give up.
Price for some of these other places that we were exploring. Turns out Singapore is a very rich country. It seemed they would pay almost anything we wanted to charge, plus ship it over there with expedite fees. I mean, they just didn't care. So that's not been the case like in South Korea and Taiwan. They were really price sensitive. The competition that we saw over there in of the components that were plastic, we deemed unsellable here. Like, no one would buy those here. But that's what we were competing against, and if there isn't a good desire for quality, those were price-driven decisions. Now, it has made us think about whether we need to have a, good, better, best type of product line that if we couldn't actually, I mean, we honestly sell a super sprocket. Like, that thing is never going to break. And it could be half that weight and compete and be cheaper, but that would involve investment on our part in a redesign and building molds and so on and so forth. But yeah, we think about that, but we kind of want to learn more about some of the other opportunities elsewhere before we dive into that.
The dollar has, the price is kind of an impediment in some areas. In Asia and South America, we do have to sell at a lower price. But how we've tried to overcome that is get samples in their hands at the trade shows. We have our distributors doing trade shows. We give them some free goods to give out to the customers as they come through so that they can test them. And they see our product as better, hands down, better quality. So that's really helped us. There are new European regulations coming out next year for medical devices, as well as the MedSAP in Canada. And so those are going to really affect us and take a lot more time. And we're going to have to make some judgment calls if we want to sell some of certain products into Canada or into Europe, or if we want to streamline what we sell into those areas due to those regulations.
Great. Any other questions? Okay.
I just have a quick question. So I know a lot of the resources that helped you guys are in the room right now. Is there anything that you needed that you didn't get? Is there any other help out there that you wished you had? Is there anything we can do to do our job better for you or for others?
That's a question. Do I get to put in a wish list? It's been great. No, I mean, it's more than I ever knew existed. As just a regular old citizen walking around, doing my thing, raising my family, that all of these things are out there with the purpose of accelerating business and jobs in the U.S. It's been great. In addition, the World Trade Center, you pay for your membership, and you have all this other expertise that's available right here in Missoula. So, no, everything that I've asked, I've gotten help with. Everything, including meeting and networking with other businesses who export, at events like this. So,
Ours possibly could be workforce. I know that is a whole nother seminar, but the busier we are in our industry, we need people, we need workers, and that is not easy.
Boy, I feel very blessed that we have so many resources. I can't think of anything that we need that we can't reach out and someone in this room would know and be able to help us. And as far as being in Missoula too, the Missoula Economic Partnership, I went to them and told them we were going to be building a building, and boy, Jenny just gave me a list of names. Here, this is who you need to contact for this, and gave me their phone numbers, everything. And we have a tremendous amount of resources. Just ask, I think, is the biggest thing. They're telling me things that go to the experts.
Great. Any last questions? Well, I would like to thank all of you for participating on the panel and shared some amazing information with everybody that I know I learned a lot here, so thank you for that. If we could get a big round of applause for our participants. I think that's it. Thank you.